All right, let's head down to the SEC for second big game, which is also probably going to be a defensive struggle and a rock fight where an explosive play probably dictates the outcome. Tennessee at Alabama, third Saturday in October. The best football game of the regular season last year in Knoxville. Both of those quarterbacks are gone. Both offenses very different. Two very good defensive lines, exactly like Ohio State and Penn State. One quarterback, Jalen Milroe, just like Ohio State and Penn State, is hitting on big X plays down the field multiple times per game. That has clearly been their MO. Also, they cannot protect the quarterback. In fact, Alabama and Ohio State are more and more like each other every time I feel like I'm talking about them. Ohio State's probably got better weapons on the outside than Alabama, but Jermaine Burton has developed quickly into a nice go-to player. They've got a couple other guys as well that they'll throw the ball to. Tennessee, meanwhile, defensive line, really great at getting pressure. They like to run the football now because Josh Heupel has no faith in Joe Milton to make big plays. Both teams are very undisciplined. They're both very sloppy when it comes to penalties. You mentioned earlier in the show how important home field is on this one. I left Neyland Stadium last weekend not seeing anything that I thought would give Tennessee a chance to win this game on the road. If they play a perfect football game, no penalties, run the football, pressure Jalen Milroe, and Joe Milton doesn't make any mistakes like he did in the end zone last week, like he did against South Carolina, and like he did against Florida, bad trend, then I think Tennessee can make this a same as Ohio State, Penn State. They can make it a 17-14, 20-17, 24-21 kind of game, and they can go down there and win. I don't think that they can be perfect. I don't think they're that good, and I think Alabama's going to do what they did to Ole Miss. I think there's going to be a couple of big plays for Tennessee. They're going to score maybe early, and then Alabama's defense, like they did against Texas A&M, will suffocate them in the second half with quality adjustments. Jalen Milroe hits a couple of big plays down the field, and Alabama wins.
I think the first thing that jumps out to me about this game is just how different it's going to be compared to last year. I mean, 52-49, and Vegas has this one with the over-under at 47 this year. I mean, you're talking about, a high scoring game last year with two quarterbacks that were drafted. The skill talent at receiver at Tennessee had a little different this year. It's just a completely different game. It's going to be a kind of a slower rock fight where just a couple plays or two on offense can matter. I mean, I think both defensive fronts are capable of creating havoc here. I think Tennessee's defensive front is going to be very problematic for Alabama's offensive line. I thought Alabama, from a run game perspective, I thought there were some things they did against Arkansas at times that, I thought, okay, maybe they're getting this going, but we saw in the second half, the offense just completely bogged down. And a lot of the passing game right now seems to be either nothing or everything. And there needs to be something in the middle at some point this season, especially when they play LSU or potentially Georgia down the road. So I think the things that I'm watching in this game are Tennessee's defensive line was so good last week. 20 pressures per Pro Football Focus on Max Johnson, protected that secondary that coming into the year Tennessee had question marks on. So
Tennessee they don't turn around and look for the football at all.
Right. Can Tennessee do the same thing they did last week? Get pressure on this time it'll be Jalen Milroe, prevent the big plays. That's a big thing. And then offensively, which quarterback do you trust more here? Jalen Milroe at home or Joe Milton on the road? And I think based upon everything we've seen, I think that's Jalen Milroe at home. If Joe Milton all of a sudden has that type of game, this suddenly becomes a game that Tennessee can win. Nick Saban, by the way, is 15-1 against Tennessee and Alabama. Of course, we remember that loss last year. There's out for revenge this year.
His record against almost everyone in the SEC is pretty similar. It's a lot of winning, not very many losing, not much losing. I think what's interesting about Josh Heupel's offensive evolution is that he accepted against a very good Texas A&M defensive front. He accepted the reality of the situation, and they figured out a way to get the running game going. I think it was because they got outside, they got off the edge, and they got those. And they have three different guys they can give the ball to, in Wright and Sampson and Small. Like they've got good guys to get the ball. The quarterback will be a part of the running game, just like Milroe. Milroe is a lot more explosive. Milton is not that kind of guy, but in some design situations, Milton can be very good. Again, if they make this a really ugly, dirty game, I think the difference is that all or nothing play. I don't think Alabama needs to have a lot of really high quality intermediate passing attack games this year to win. against, like you said, against LSU maybe. But I think if they just stay patient and let their defense work, Milroe will hit on one of those 2 or 3 big plays because the Tennessee secondary is not going to cover. And so I think Bama will do that. And that will, just like Ohio State against Penn State, those 1 or 2 big plays, 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown passes that Alabama has been hitting on almost every week. I think that's the difference. I don't think Tennessee can do that play, but I think Alabama can. So I think, honestly, I think it's like 14-13 in the fourth quarter. Jalen Milroe hits a big play. Alabama wins late. I don't know. I wouldn't touch the 9-point spread, though. I wouldn't touch that.
Jalen Wright for Tennessee, I think, might be one of the more underrated running backs in the country. I think he gets lost a little bit, and certainly with Jabari Small and Dylan Sampson, like you mentioned. But
he might not even be the best running back on his team.
Yeah, I just think he's fun to watch. I think he's underrated.
He's great. Yeah, he's
I just wanted to give him a little credit. We saw
there's a lot of
the sport.
There's a lot of really undersized running backs in college football that deserve more love. Yeah, like Bucky Irvin, Nick Singleton, Jabari, Jalen Wright all need more accolades for the job that they're doing for their teams.
Absolutely, but I think in this game specifically, if Tennessee's rushing attack, if Wright and Small are having success here, Tennessee may not need Joe Milton to have that big play. If they're not,
you're telling me a team that can be completely one-dimensional with a bad secondary can go into Tuscaloosa and win a game?
If Tennessee runs for 230 yards, they can win this game,
which is what they're averaging.
Right. Which, I mean, I think Alabama is going to do a better job against they have a functional coaching staff, so they're probably going to do a better job against Tennessee than Texas A&M did. So I think Alabama at home, defense, Jalen Milroe, 1 or 2 plays to the air. That's the difference.
Yep.
So give me the Crimson Tide.
I agree. Their adjustments at halftime completely shut down Ole Miss in the second half, completely shut down Texas A&M in the second half. Again, not shutting down Max Johnson is not a huge accomplishment, but A&M was way better in the first half against Bama, and they made big adjustments. The second half against Arkansas, not so much. That was a total inverse. So I don't know what to make of that. I mean, KJ Jefferson's a really good player, and they kind of, I don't know, the offense kind of shut it down. It felt like in that second half, they were up really big in the second half relative to Alabama's defensive standards. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if you have any thoughts about how that game unfolded, but Tennessee's not as dynamic at quarterback, but far better along the offensive line and in the running game than Arkansas.
I was going to say it's some part of a master plan by Nick Saban to get a little rat poison for this week to keep him motivated against Tennessee. But no,
do people? Okay, hang on. Do you not understand do people not understand what rat poison means?
I do.
Struggling is not rat poison. Rat poison is when they are fed by all their little girlfriends on campus, as Mike Leach would say, when they are fed nothing but positivity about how great they are. That's the rat poison. When you pop in a film and Nick Saban at practice with his team can say, look how much you sucked in the fourth quarter. That ain't rat poison. That's like that's just regular old fashioned motivation.
Yeah, what was it? Terrion Arnold, I think, sums up the butt chewings very well by Nick Saban. You have to forget the fact that you have to listen to the message there, and I think the message this week is going to be we can't play like that in the second half and expect to win against Tennessee. But I think just in general, it was not a very good second half, and Milroe made just a couple passing plays that kind of secured the victory. 23 passing yards though in the second half. One of those was that key conversion late to beat Arkansas. Arkansas did have some moments on offense in the second half, so I think it was just sluggish. It just wasn't very good by Alabama. I don't know if it's more than that at this point.
I think it's very similar to Ole Miss this week. I think it's like 24-10, 24-13. Because I don't think Joe Milton can make enough plays down the field. Yes, they're going to pressure Jalen Milroe because that's what happens to him. He gets sacked 4 times every game, guaranteed. So they're going to get pressure on him. James Pierce has been great for Tennessee. I think they're going to run the football in the first half, and they won't be able to in the second half. And I think the score will look very similar to Ole Miss. 24-10 is kind of where I'm at. I don't love the point spread though, so I'm not touching that game. But what do I know? I've been terrible against the spread this year. So.
Give me Alabama, low scoring, at home, Milroe, defense.